Now, the other thing you're looking for when you have a client management or asset management system is the population of your CMDB. And we already talked about in a couple of the use cases I mentioned here today what a CMDB brings. CMDB also could be known as, of course, a configuration management database. The configuration management database is there to assist in making informed decisions around the risk of a particular change because we can understand the upstream and downstream impacts of a related device. It also helps us to understand ownership, life cycle of our assets, who they're associated to, who the primary user is, who owns or manages the device, and then, of course, how that all relates to our services that we provide to our organization. Well, the first step pardon me, in building a CMDB or configuration management database is populating it with the hardware that makes up the system. And what BCM provides is an agentless scan. And the agentless scan, first of all, discovers all the IP-based devices in your environment. This could be a router. This could be a switch. This could be a firewall. This could be a server, a virtual device. In medical, in hospitals, we've run scans and found all the medical equipment that has an IP address these days, which is quite a few. Maybe there's a gaming console somebody plugged in, and of course that's a big security hole. This will identify that. There's about 45 different device types it will actually identify, but it will find everything. Second thing we then do is identify the hosts, being a physical or virtual device. It could be a server, desktop, laptop, Mac, Windows, Linux, doesn't really matter. And then it glues, and then it looks on that device, and understands all the software that's installed. And yes, it gives you the detailed software, the EXEs, the add-move program entries, but it also normalizes that data to help you with software license management. So all of this information, the network devices, the physical and virtual devices, the software devices, are then related and imported or synchronized with the CMDB within BMC FootPrints. So now, within a change ticket, within an incident, within a problem, within any process that you decide to manage with BMC FootPrints, you can understand and visualize the network relationships, the hardware relationship to a network device, what port is a particular device plugged into on which switch, the virtual and physical relationships. Oh, look, this application sitting on a virtual server which sits on this physical host. And of course, then on this physical host or virtual host exist these pieces of software. And again, the value of your CMDB is to help you, really optimize your processes, whatever processes those are: incident management, problem management, change management, as well as request fulfillment. So that's yet another benefit of integrating both FootPrints and BCM into your toolbox. Now, lastly, we want to talk about workflows, and workflows are kind of where everyone wants to get to anyway. It's the end game. It's the panacea. It's the idea that, why are we doing all this? Well, we're doing all this to optimize the end user experience. And if you look in the center of the screen here, we have a slide that represents a service catalog. And what does the end user do when they want something? Hopefully they're going to your service catalog and they drill down through the navigational menus, which are, of course, graphical. And they can choose the asset or piece of software in this example that they want. Maybe it's Microsoft Visio. Maybe it's something that's a little more generic. Maybe it's an Adobe Reader or an Adobe Writer, something for which you might have a volume license for. Either way, they make the request, a ticket gets generated in the system, and through BMC FootPrints, we can then automate a variety of things. If, in fact, this piece of software requires an approval, the end user is notified through the service catalog that it's going to go through an approval. Of course, the other value of a service catalog is the fact that the end user understands how long it will take to fulfill, whether or not this is something that's been automated and it's just a matter of getting it approved before it deploys, or whether if it's something that has to be delivered, who knows. But the service catalog provides all that information. Ticket gets created. We may not route for approval. And whether it's then approved through email by the manager, whether it has to go to a license manager who looks in the software licensing piece of BCM to understand whether you have an available license or not, they can perform that approval through the end user portal. They can approve that approval through email or as a technician. Once it's approved, or if no approval is required, what then happens is the software is automatically deployed, leveraging the application management or application deployment tool. This happens with no interaction by the IT staff. It's something that's pre-configured in our workflow engine. Literally, there's about 3 different wizards that would need to be created to facilitate a workflow of this nature. one to generate the template, one to generate approval if required, and then one to kick off a particular package from BCM if in fact it was something you wanted to automate. And then of course leveraging the BCM integration after the software is deployed. It is re-inventoried, the information is populated back up into BCM, and your software license management dashboard gets updated in an automatic fashion. So with zero to very little touch by anybody on the IT or IT staff, the end user can browse the available pieces of software available to them, make the request, and within moments have that software delivered and made readily available to them. And then they can even be notified through a pop-up or an email or anything that you want to. And of course, on the back side, you have a ticket that shows the entire transaction, the request, the approval, the fulfillment, the successful or unsuccessful deployment, and of course, then the updating of the software license. And everybody is happy. And this, again, requires no programming to make happen and is easy for the end user to execute as well as the technician or manager to report on after the fact. So these are some very powerful aspects of what can occur when you integrate both a IT service management and desktop or asset management product. I'm going to take a couple moments now to show you in FootPrints version 12 what the integration looks like, just so you get a better understanding for some of the aspects I've been mentioning for you here today, and then we will open it up to questions. So give me just a moment to pull up my demonstration environment. All right, so here's a demonstration environment. Let's take a quick look at what the end user may see when they log into the FootPrints portal with an integrated client management aspect to it. So as we talked about in one of the last slides there, the idea of a service catalog, it's very graphical. They can request things that cannot perhaps be fulfilled by an automated solution, and we're still going to automate the workflow around it. But to kind of emphasize the workflow that I mentioned to you, we have our software that's available to the end user. And the software catalog in BMC FootPrints is fairly easy to administer as well as to utilize or access as an end user. If we think about something that might be individually licensed or require some sort of approval, you can imagine it looks a little bit perhaps like this, where the cost to the department is identified up front. The end user is aware of the fact that this is going to go through an approval. Of course, the approval workflow has already been created by administration such that it might go to the manager perhaps first for approval, do purchase, and then do a license manager to approve and allocate the license to the device or something along those lines. But the end user simply hits request service. A simple screen comes up that's already got them into the right workflow. They can identify why they want it, justification. And with a simple save and close, that operation is complete. And the user can then track the status of that request as it goes to the approval process, at which point it will automatically be delivered. It's very simple, very straightforward. We talked a bit about knowledge base and the importance of it. It can also be exposed to the end user, as you see here. Go back to here. And it again is graphical. So it's a very graphical interface. And lastly, while we're talking about self-service, is the idea that the end user may want to submit an incident. And if in fact something that they report through the incident interface is available to help us, if we can invoke an action to help resolve it, of course that's available to us as well. But I'll just take a quick moment here to walk you through the end user interface. We try to keep it simple. It's very configurable. All the forms are drag and drop configuration, as some of you may or may not be aware. I cannot print. I have here a drop down that says I am having an action. We're going to choose printing something specifically to a printer down the hall or an attached printer. And the problem is ink is low. Now the idea here is that we're making it easy for the end user to submit the incident, but at the same time we're gathering the amount of information we need to accurately route this ticket such that we can get this thing down the right path initially and not have any rerouting or delays that would increase customer dissatisfaction or aggravation and so forth. And then lastly, we try to ask them a couple of questions to help us gauge the importance of the issue, which will then, of course, prioritize it. If the user wanted to try to help themselves, we give them the opportunity to search the knowledge base leveraging some of this information. Otherwise, they might just say, help, right? But the idea here is that it's a simple interface. It could be 1 field, it could be 20. It's up to you. Very configurable, very easy to utilize as an end user. Let's talk a bit now about the technician interface. In FootPrints version 12, there's the idea of the portal, which is everything you see here, including these consoles, which give you access to different views within the system, different dashboard components, which access our analytics engine. I can filter, create tabs for different types of tickets. As a technician, I can access the catalog or the knowledge base as well. And then, of course, we have these action items or buttons, which give us access to the different forms I've created within the system. Let's take a look at the dynamics of an incident form. Now, again, I'm logged in as somebody on the help desk or service desk, so this is going to be a much more robust interface than the one I showed you as an end user. Let me maximize my real estate here and get rid of the widgets and just kind of briefly talk about the integration, since that's the focus of today's webinar. Ultimately, when you pick up that phone as a help desk technician, they simply want to, first identify who it is they're working with. BMC FootPrints does allow you to identify a variety of fields you can use to search your customer database, and that customer database could be Active Directory, LDAP, ODBC. With a simple push of a button or hit of an enter key, it searches that database and returns any possible matches. As a help desk technician, I would verify who it is I'm working with, link it, at which point the integration kicks in, and with a very fast REST API, communicates with the client manager database and returns for me, returns for me at the bottom of the screen any asset that user is actively logged into. So if the user has both a laptop and a desktop, and the desktop is probably at their desk, the laptop might be at their house, doesn't matter, I'm able to see that and ask the user to identify which device they're calling in about. Presumably it's one they're logged into. So that's what you're seeing down here, and that's very quick, very real time. Now at the top, if I had this populated, it would be information from your CMDB, which, if you think about it, if you have a kiosk or a device that's out in a lobby somewhere and a user's calling in about it, they're probably not logged into it. So you want to be able to find that information about that device, and I can search for it. At the same time, I might be calling in about my device and not be logged into it at all. And ownership of a device, where a device exists, that stuff is going to be all up in your CMDB. Asset Core or Client Manager is really storing the real-time actionable data about a device. And they do serve very different purposes, and they're both available based on the nature of the call. So now that I've linked the user and the device to this ticket, we can document, okay, sir, I've identified who you are and which device you're sitting in front of, what is your problem today? And the user might state that the machine is running slow. And of course, we can move this forward in the process and put it to in progress. We can flip through the detailed information. I'm not really at a point where I can categorize this ticket yet. I haven't done any root cause analysis or asked them any additional questions. But what I can do is drill down deeper into their machine just to get a very quick update. And this is the integration. It's all real-time data. It's not being replicated in any way, shape, or form at this point. We're doing live web calls to the system. And you know what? I might say, just hold on a moment, sir. Let me take a quick look at your device. And leveraging the integration, in this case, the remote management capability, I can look at the real-time running processes of a device. Now, you'll notice I'm not leaving my solution. I'm in an integrated BCM and FootPrints screen. And I can see the real-time running processes on that user's device. Again, Windows, Mac, Linux, on or off network. If they say the machine's running slow, the first thing I'd want to do is maybe look at the memory usage of applications or the CPU usage of applications and start to kill or not kill applications. Maybe I want to run something as myself, not the logged on user who might be restricted, to help me troubleshoot the issue.